And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and start up my Excel tools for educators for today. Now, this is intended to be a hands-on activity. So Landis posted a link in the chat to an Excel file, and that is a copy of the same file that I'm going to be working with. Basically, it is a raw data file that we're going to go in. We're going to talk about some of the tools in Excel, and then we're going to kind of play around with the different spreadsheets in there and try to get the different pieces working for us and get that all added in. Okay, so just as a recap, this is kind of assuming that you're familiar with a lot of the topics that we covered in the first Excel basics session. So that was back in November. So things like defining Excel, what's a cell versus what's a column, what's a range, that kind of stuff, the lingo for Excel we touched on in the first one. Similarly with formatting, when you want to change the appearance or how Excel is reading your information, and then filters and sorting, which all of these are really great pieces of information to know. We're going to be building on that knowledge. So again, maybe you might need a refresher. You can go back and watch that YouTube video. This video will also be posted to the Clicks YouTube page, so you can see that too. Okay. As for today, where we're going to be jumping off, I'm going to start off with some general tips, reminders, and disclaimers. Kind of the more we get into Excel, the more there is to say about it or questions that might pop up. So I just kind of want to get ahead of that, some good things to keep in mind or what you might want to look for as you're working on it by yourself moving forward. Beyond that, we'll be looking at conditional formatting. So we talked about formatting last time where you can change how a cell looks. Conditional formatting is basically creating rules so that it will look a certain way based on what number is in there, or if a certain word appears, or if there are duplicates or something along those lines. So we'll talk about that for conditional formatting, how we can set up rules and adapt them. There is text to columns. Text to columns is a tool that I find not many people know about, but it can have a really big impact and really simplify your life when it's just the right tool you need. So there might be something where you need to split information up, and it can make your life really easy. And the last one is a really huge topic. We're just going to be scratching the surface, and this is talking about formulas. So when you're using formulas in your workbook, how can you make them work better? How can you make sure that you know exactly what you're inputting and getting the results that you're looking for across your workbook or across several sheets? Okay, so getting into some tips, reminders, and disclaimers. First off, there is this file attached. We're going to go in and play around with it, and I recommend that you kind of hold on to that as a blueprint. So moving forward, in a week, in a month, whenever you might be working with Excel and really need to dig into it, having a file where you have some formulas set up where it's referring to different areas, and you can kind of trace back your steps and figure out how you made those changes before. I really recommend it. It can serve as your own blueprint for what works for you and what you want to duplicate the next time you're working with it. My reminder here is to check how you are using Excel. So this is a little bit strange, but as you probably all know, there are so many different ways that you can access files through Island Health. So, you could have the Excel file, the Excel app open on your desktop computer. Or you could be going through a browser and you're viewing, you clicked on a link in Sharepoint and now you have Google Chrome or Internet Explorer is showing the document and you're editing there. There might be small changes in terms of what options you see or how something may look. It might display different in one tool versus the other. And so just being aware of how you're viewing it can make a big impact. And then this is just a general Excel disclaimer or kind of any Microsoft tool. Just a lot of times there's many different routes to get to the same place. So as an example, if you copy something and you want to paste it in a different area, well, you could right click and choose paste. You could use a hotkey that's hold down Control and press the letter V. Or you could go to your ribbon menu at the top of your screen and choose paste there. So there's so many different ways to get to the same place. If I go a different route than you are used to, if you say, hey, well, I've done this before and I did a different way, I'm sure you did, and that you might even have a quicker way, but what I do in 3 clicks, you might be able to do in 2. Someone else might be able to do in 5 clicks. I find that just get comfortable with what works for you. The more you use Excel, you can kind of get into patterns and then can simplify down the road. Don't worry about getting everything out of this session. If there's one or two tools or takeaways that you get from this session, consider it a win. Again, there's so many things available here that some things will line up with what you need in day-to-day work, and some pieces won't, and that's just fine. As a reminder, the best place where you can get support is just go to Google, search for I'd say if you're searching for a function or a formula, try to include as much specific information as you can. There are tons of tutorials on YouTube where they'll walk you through it, step by step, all the individual elements of a formula or of a menu. So yeah, YouTube has great pieces of information. There's also, if you are a member of LinkedIn Learning or other online services, there are lots of Excel programs or scenarios available. And
Charlie, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, of course.
I just opened up the Excel spreadsheet and I'm just wondering, do you want folks to download their own copy so it's on their own desktop? Because right now, we've got like everybody in this meeting using the same
question.
Excel.
Yes, definitely download your own copy. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So definitely download your own copy, and I'd recommend opening it. Being mindful of being aware of where we're opening. I'd recommend downloading it and then opening it in the desktop app. That's what I'll be doing, and so that will probably be easiest to view through your own page. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I think Lena's gonna post that again. Thanks again. And yes, so the key here is download it, open it up, and then when you have this file open up on the app, you'll probably have a yellow band across the top, and you'll have to enable editing or something along those lines. Again, we have different versions of Excel that are coming and going, but when you open it up, you'll probably see an option to edit, and you want to make sure you click that so you'll be able to go in and tinker around with this file like we intend. But yeah, so last disclaimer, we're just scratching the surface. If I present something and you think, well, I've seen it a different way, or I do something else that's similar, but I think a little bit more effective. Yeah, it might be that we're not getting into that depth because we don't have the time, or because it might be that my personal experience isn't that familiar with it. But I think we're definitely open to having more Excel sessions in the future. If you want to shoot me an email, if you have any ideas, or the Learning Burst organizers, some folks reached out about topic ideas after the last Excel. So feel free, drop a line if there's something that you think you'd like to see explored. Okay, so that's just kind of some of the overall things, again, as you're getting more familiar with Excel, things that you want to be aware of and keep in mind. So the next topic that we're going to get into and kind of get into, this is where we're going to dive into the file here, is conditional formatting. So conditional formatting is available from your when you're in Excel. If you're on the Home tab, it pops up under Styles, and there's a conditional formatting tool here. I'm going to go ahead and open my own Excel. Now, the way we have it here, I've got kind of the raw data, which is just the set piece of information. This is, it looks like a report that would come from the Learning Hub. I've entered in some dummy information, and some things are randomized. It doesn't necessarily all make 100% sense, but at the same time, it's just, we're using it so we can kind of get some hands-on experience here. So the same information is available across all of the different tabs in the workbook. The raw data, conditional formatting, text to columns, and formulas, because these are what we're going to play around with today. So if you go ahead to the conditional formatting tab, and the reason it's the same information across all of these is I want to be able to go in, play around with it, and then not have it change for the next, the next tool we want to look at. So we're going to work with conditional formatting here, and then text to columns the next one, and we'll see how kind of all those different pieces come together. Okay, so within conditional formatting, the idea here is that you will create rules for how you want your text to look, and what that, or how you want your cells to look or operate. And so if we go to conditional formatting under styles here, it has these little red and blue bars, and you can click the drop down, and you see you have options for like highlighting cells, for creating a new rule, for creating color scales. So what conditional formatting is you create a series of rules where it's something along the lines of, well, if you, let's say that you're looking at test scores. So, we've got test scores here. Let's say that everything under 60 is a fail. Well, what we could do with conditional formatting is we can create a rule saying if you see a number that's under 60, mark it red, because that's going to indicate that this is a fail. And the way you would do that is you would click on the column that you want to format. In this case, I click on the I at the very top to highlight the entire column I. And actually, I'll zoom in a little bit too. Don't make it a little bit clearer for the views. So, okay, we've got our test score here. And what I want to do is create a rule where if someone scored less than 60, it appears as red. So that kind of indicates a failure. And so then if I have the information selected, I can either be in my home tab and go to conditional formatting. There is another way to do it. I'll just go straight from the home tab. So then conditional formatting. Now, what I can do here is highlight and create highlight cell rules. And so this is by holding your mouse here, you get to see what are some of the general rules that people create with conditional formatting. I want to highlight a number that's bigger than this number, or less than, or a date between these dates, or something along those lines. In this case, I'm going to do less than. I want to create a rule where format cells that are less than 60 will display with a light red fill and dark red text. And I can click OK. And so now you can see any cell in this column that falls below that 60 mark is marked with red now. But I'm not limited to just one. I can keep doing that and set up different rules. So I can also highlight this and then go to conditional formatting, highlight cell rules, and let's say I want to do between, and I want to say everything between 60 and 80, we're going to mark in yellow. Okay, needs improvement. So I'll do highlight cell rules and do between, and then I can say between 60 and 80. Maybe I'll do 79. Do 79, and then you can see you have a drop down here for kind of some simple options, and one of them, we have a red, yellow, green scale, so I'll just go, all right, and then logically, what am I going to do? I'm also going to go ahead and create where I have my, if it's greater than 80, because I should say if it's greater than 79, then I'll fill it with green, because that's a number that marks as excellent pass. And so by doing so, you can see that now I have kind of a quick visual of the entire column. I don't have to go in individually. I just set up that rule, and now every time a new number is entered, it factors that in. Now there are, within conditional formatting, you can do lots of different features, like if it has a certain word, if it has a code, and those would be, within highlight, it could be like text that contains, highlight any text where hospital appears or where urgent appears. And then any cell that has that will include. Is it possible to make a rule that says if column H is X and column I is X, color the cell red? So if there's like a match, if there's a duplicate, it seems like Robin's question is asking. So Robin, you're asking about duplicates that would be in different columns.
Sorry, I'm just going to interrupt
sure.
for a minute just to clarify my question because it wasn't very clear. So I have an Excel spreadsheet, but say like the test score, I keep track of like days, but the column before is like the urgency. So to determine if we're within benchmarks for booking, I'm just manually changing the color, but like say column H was the urgency of the orders and it was routine. The number of days that are within benchmark are different. So like it may be green for routine, but red for urgent.
Okay, so there
Does
are
that make
things.
Sense?
Yeah, and you know what, like for questions like that, the answer is almost always you can do it, but it kind of depends on how much homework you'll have to do to get into it. So like, I know you can create formulas that like read the color of a cell, and you could say like, okay, if these colors match, or if these formatting match, make a certain mark. So it would be possible to do something like that. I don't have a quick answer for exactly how that would, what that formula would look like. But yeah, that's something that is definitely in the realm of possibility. But there might be some, you could set guidelines for, similarly, we could do that. I'll kind of touch on what you were talking about in formulas a little later too, because it might be a kind of combination of things that you could put together to make that work out. And Gail, I see your question. How do you change an already existing rule that you find your answer? Exactly. That's in manage rules. So if you have, here now, all of a sudden there's lots of different rules going on here. And if I want to see what exactly is happening in this cell, I can go to conditional formatting and go to manage rules. And then you'll see it lays out, okay, if it's greater than 79, it's going to be green. If it's between 60 and 79, it'll be yellow. And if it's less than 60, it'll be red. And then you can go in, you can edit these, you can delete a rule if you want to get rid of it, and et cetera. Yeah. Okay. So the next thing I want to mention that also falls under the conditional formatting, and kind of, I think it's a question that pops up a lot, is duplicates. So duplicates can be very frustrating when you're working with like a big data set, especially with something like this. Maybe you have a report of learners who completed a course, but someone might appear multiple times because they work in multiple sites. So, oh, I've completed it and I'm showing up under this cost center, but maybe they also show up in another group for one reason or another. And what I'll show is that I have created a few sneaky duplicates here in the employee range. So some employees show up more than once here. And the quickest way to kind of view those duplicates is you can highlight the column where you think there's going to be duplicates. Go to conditional formatting and then go to highlight cell rules, and there is a duplicate values option here. So if I turn on the conditional formatting rule for duplicate values and say any duplicate you find in column C, because I have it highlighted, any duplicate you have in column C will show up with that red filler. And so I'll click OK, and now I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Let's see here. I'll zoom out a little bit so we can see. I thought I made some duplicates. Let's see where they show up. I lost my duplicates. Okay, apologies. I did make some duplicates, but I might have accidentally overwrote them. But I'll just show in, let's see, will this work? Well, so sadly, I don't have my duplicate values for the names like I was hoping, but you can see here, these are just dates and what happens to line up. They show up with the red formatting. So if you're searching for duplicates, you think there might be, you can highlight, click conditional formatting, and then there under highlight cell rules, there's that very simple duplicate values that will, point everything out in red, and you can go in and adjust them. After you've color coded, can you then organize into groups? You can. So in the first session, we talked about sorting. And sorting does have the option to sort by color. So Jacinta, I recommend going back, checking out that initial one and looking at the sorting guide. And there is an option where you can sort based on color. Or you could also do something along the lines of sort based on test score. And then naturally, all the green ones are going to be together, all the yellow ones will be together, and all the red ones will be together. Okay. I'll zoom in a little bit more. And the next topic I want to talk about, so that's conditional formatting. Again, there are so many layers you could go into to kind of really differentiate how you want your data to look. But that is the quick view of it. You know what? Just one last thing with conditional formatting, because it's super simple and it's a very nice visual that you can bring forward, is within conditional formatting, there's also a category for data bars and data scales. And this is a super quick way to add data visualization to your information. So like as an example, if I go to color scales and click this red, yellow, and green, Excel will look at the numbers and say, okay, you have some numbers are 1, some are 2, and some are 3. Well, just by default, if I see the high number, I'm going to turn it green. If I see the middle number, I'm going to turn it yellow. And if I see the low number, I'm going to turn it red. But you can, change those rules. You can but another thing that you can do here is data bars. Similarly, yeah, you can just say, hey, give me data bars, and it'll show little visualizations here, kind of mini graphs of this is what it looks like if you have 1, this is what it looks like if you have 2, and this is what it looks like if you have 3. So yeah, again, just a quick little thing that you might find helpful to spruce up a presentation or a set of data. Okay. All right, so the next area I want to look at is text to columns. So I'm going to open up the text to columns sheet here. Now, text to columns is a very specific answer to a very specific issue that pops up a lot in Excel, which is what do you do when the information you want is bunched together with information that you don't want in a cell? And so this happens sometimes. A cell might come out, and I give an example here. In column C, it's employee names, but the first and last name are together. And that can be really frustrating when you're trying to, manage things. Well, now if I alphabetize it, it's all going to be based on first name, and that's really annoying. Or sometimes it's like the date and time and some other thing might all be crammed together, and you just want the date there. So what you can do is there is a feature called text to columns. Which what that does is essentially looks at your information and splits it up every time it meets certain criteria. So the first thing about text to columns, we're going to use it on column C. But it's really important to know that when you're working with text to columns, the data you're working with needs room to grow. And what I mean by that is you need blank columns to the right of your data that as it gets split, it can kind of pour out into. And so right now, if I tell it to split, it's going to keep the first name in column C and the second name is going to go to column D. Well, I don't really want to, I don't want to lose the information I have in column D. So what we would do here is add more room. And the way we would do that is you could I'll highlight cells D and E. I want to enter in 2 columns here just to make sure. So I'm going to highlight columns D and E. And then I'm going to right click and choose insert. And by doing that, now I get 2 blank columns. So again, I'm going to split out the information from column C. But before I do that, I need some room to breathe. So I highlighted columns D and E, right clicked, and then clicked insert to get some blank space. All right. And now what I'll do is click on column C all the way at the top so it highlights the whole column. And this one, we have to go to the Data tab. And in the Data tab, there is the option for something all the way over here called Text to Columns. And what Text to Columns does is when you click Text to Columns, it brings up a pop-up menu. And this pop-up menu is basically walking you through the process of how you're going to divide up the information here. And so you have 2 choices from the beginning. You can either have break it up delimited or fixed width. 9 times out of 10, you're going to want to use delimited, which is basically you're telling Excel every time you see this, split it into a new column. Every time you see a space, every time you see a colon or a dash, split it into a new column. That indicates that it's different information. Every time you see a period in an email address, okay, that's how you're going to split out the first name from the last name. Okay. Fixed width is if you are just working with a specific, I want 6 characters in this entry. As soon as you get to 6 characters, split it off into the next one. But we're going to do delimited for this example. So we click delimited, we click next, and then it gives you an option of your delimiter. So the delimiter is what do you want to use to split up the information that you have here? And so in this case, instead of tab, we're going to unselect tab and choose space instead. And now what you can see is that it gives us a preview down below of what our information will look like. It gives a little line of where something has been split up. And now what we could do, there is next. If you go to next, it's kind of, it prompts you for any formatting that you might want. Generally, I'll just leave this at text because it is in text. So I'll just choose that. Formatting, this kind of plays out with how does Excel read numbers. That's formatting. That's covered in the first Excel session. But I'll just usually choose text to make sure that it kind of keeps whatever data we have. And I'll click finish. Okay, So this is the warning that it gives you when it might write over something. Because I made 2 spaces, I think we're actually all clear. I don't think I will get prompted here, or will bump anything, but I want to show you. Oh, I did have this on manager. Oh, there we go. So this is something where the text to columns is good, but like everything, there's a little bit of a catch. And so the catch here is if someone has, like in this case, their last name has spaces in it. So, or if someone has a middle initial or something, well, Excel doesn't know the difference between a middle name and a last name. It just sees the space. So when it sees a space, it can create additional columns. So going in here would require a bit of cleanup. I'd go in, copy this and put it back in, and so on. So, but one time I gave this training to people who worked at an accounting group, and basically, they kind of saw that you can highlight all these, click text to columns and split it out. And they just looked at each other and they're like, I wish we'd had this last week, because they had just gone through reviewing like 1,500 different lines and copying and pasting. But yeah, you can go through it. It does need a little bit of cleanup. You got to go in, tidy it up. But now we have a first name and a last name field that gets split out. So again, that's under the data field and text to columns. Now full disclosure here, I did screw up because I didn't leave enough room for all the data that was coming through. So you do want to make sure that this has room to breathe, and that when you do your split, there might be extra spaces. There might be little, extra dashes that you weren't expecting, especially if you have a huge amount of data. Give it room. It needs a little bit of cleanup, but usually you'll have pretty good, cleanup from where it started. Okay. So the next topic I want to talk about is formulas. And I'll just do a few kind of top of mind pieces about formulas. So the formula or function, this can be a really daunting element of Excel, because there's so much that you can do with it. There are so many different options for what kind of formulas you can bring, but it's also a little intimidating because there's so many, and because it feels like it's easy to make a mistake, or have something that doesn't work the way you were hoping it would. So I want to point out that with functions, I find that you can really get by with just using a few, and there are just by just having a few functions in your back pocket. And by the way, I'm using functions and formula. They're very similar terms, so we can kind of use them interchangeably. So with a function, what this is doing is it's basically reading the data, and you can say, I want to, add these numbers together. I want to take an average of these numbers, or something along those lines. And using functions will always be a better way to summarize your data than by doing hard coding. So hard coding is, let's say you need to add up 2 different numbers. Okay, well, one is 2 and one is 3. So you just write in 5. Well, writing 5 is fine when it's just getting started, but then once you have hundreds of lines of rows, and if you make one typo in that sum, all of a sudden all the information is thrown off. So instead of saying, oh, I know 2 plus 3, that's 5, I'll just write it in. You can create a formula to say, add this number to that number and provide me the answer. You still get that 5, but now you can use that formula across all the rows of data that you have. Okay, so we'll kind of get into that. When you are in Excel, you can access the function menu. It's right here. This little FX option is here when you are looking at how to edit a cell. And I just want to kind of touch on a few different standard formulas. And really, I just want to take some time to talk about one of the big formulas. The biggest formula, I'd say, is the sum formula. So the sum formula, you can use it. What you probably see most often is when you're adding things together, a formula that might look, a formula that might look something along these lines. Like, okay, I want to add up A2 and B2, or I want to add A2 plus C2. Add these numbers together. Show me what what's the sum when you add them all up. That's pretty straightforward. but you can also use sum for the other 4 basic mathematical functions. So even though the term is sum, you can still use it to get a subtraction. You can still use it for division or multiplication. And so you can use these symbols like asterisk for multiplication, the / for division. And when you're working with formulas, you can refer to a variety, you can refer to the same information in a variety of ways. So one is you can name a specific cell. We talked about cells in the first one, like as an example, this cell here is A2. This cell here is my test score, that's I3. And whenever you click on a cell, you can always check there's a little bar here that will tell you what is the information that you're looking at. So I highlight this one, and it's like, hey, you're looking at I4. You can also, you yourself can type in here and enter a range and just type it in and say something along the lines of, I want to look at I1 through I99 and click enter. And then that will highlight all the information that you have in that range. Okay. So I want to show you some of the things that you can do with these functions and how you can apply them widely across your information. And so to do that, what we're going to do is we have 2 stats here in J and K, which is the minutes they spent in the course and the number of attempts the learner took to complete the course. And so to start this up, I'm going to recommend that we create a new blank column between K and L. And so to do that, what we'll do is right click on L and click insert. And that gives us a blank column. And so we're just going to do a simple function that is average minutes per attempt. And so this is something where we've got the number of minutes that they spent in the course, the number of times they attempted the course. And so we are going to create a formula that summarizes that. And so to do so, whenever you start writing a formula, you can hit enter, sum. So you click enter to tell Excel that you're writing a formula. You start typing out the name of the formula, and you'll see that it will provide you with suggestions for what formula you might want to use. And so with sum, then what we do is with sum, it will show you need to add the details of your numbers in. And so I could type in J2 because I want to refer to this 78 minutes here, and I want to divide the 78 minutes by the number of course attempts, which is 2. So I could type in J2 here, but I could also just click on the cell. So when I click on it, you see it says sum J2, and then I'm going to do my /, which means I want to divide it. So I'm going to take J2 and divide it by the number of course attempts, which in this case is K2. And then I'm going to close it and click OK, click enter. And now what this is doing is it's taking the information in J, dividing by the information that's in K, and showing me what that final number is. That's just a simple division formula. So here's where formulas make your life a lot easier. Going in and typing individually by cell, that's not going to be easy. It gets easy when you highlight a formula that you've already made and you get this little green square in the lower right-hand corner. What this little green square allows you to do is click on that square and you can drag it down, and this will apply the same formula to every square that you apply it to. And what it's doing is as it goes down, it's actually shifting the numbers down as it goes. So we started at J2 and K2, but as we go down, you can look at the top and it will automatically jump down. Excel is reading that, okay, well, as you're going down, you don't want to keep referring to the ones at the top. So we're going to move the formula down as you go along with it. Okay. So that's one thing you could do with formulas. Now, there might be a case where you don't necessarily want to repeat, you don't want the information to shift with you. And with something along those lines, it might be that there's a constant number that you want to refer to, or for whatever reason, if you want to lock in a number, so sorry. Yeah. Excel can always be messy, even if you're familiar with it. So in this case, every time we go down a row, it automatically jumps down. But with Excel, what you can do is you can use dollar signs. And this is something along the lines, you've probably seen this appear before, but not really clocked what's going on. But if you see dollar signs in a formula, what that means is that Excel knows that it should not, Excel is you're telling Excel that it should not move the formula down. So now if I write a formula that uses $K, $2, now even if I drag this formula down, every single time it's going to be referencing that K2. Those dollar signs lock it in as opposed to making it possible to scroll down. So that's just something that I want you to be aware of, because sometimes you really want Excel formulas to shift down and move with you. And sometimes it's really frustrating when Excel formulas are like, oh, I just wanted to reference this one cell. Why does it keep moving with me? But it's, it just, that knowing what is the dollar sign to lock it in can be really helpful. There was another area that I want to get to, but unfortunately, I don't think we'll have time. We won't have time for it today, and that's the named ranges to kind of simplify. What we're going to do is I'm going to add some additional content to the PowerPoint slides, and I'll share that with Landis later this week. And so I'll also make, I think I might also make some additions and make like a finalized version of the Excel file that can be kind of used as more of a reference, because Excel gets a little tricky and it can be kind of time consuming to dig into the pieces, but we've touched on a few different elements of creating formulas, of using that text to columns and conditional formatting. And if there's any kind of immediate feedback or questions, I'm happy to give a little bit of insight. But really, in a lot of cases, I will recommend, if you know a formula you want to work with, if you know something that should work one way, but it's been working a different one, go check out YouTube, go check out, try to add as much information as possible. I learned a lot of the information for myself through YouTube as I was kind of putting together courses. But yeah, so there's lots of good tips on there that I really recommend. So I think that's pretty much it for me. I'll have more information coming via the PowerPoint slides and an updated data sheet that you'll probably be able to get by the end of the week or maybe early next week.
Thank you, Charlie. That's a lot of really good information. I like I think it was the data. I can't remember what it was now, but it showed the graph in each column, and I was like, oh, that's really good for visual learners.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.